The question was posed, and I loved this question. My coaching client asked me for the group coaching that took place last Thursday, what is food freedom? It's a short question that requires a very long and lengthy answer when it comes to women who struggle and who battle with their weight. What is food freedom? Well, I just so happen to have a written out answer to that in my very first story that was published in a compilation book. The story is called Finding Freedom from Formidable Food. And I want to share that story with you today. But first, I want you, if you are watching, I want you to go ahead and click like on this video, leave a comment below, let me know that you're here. And if you're new to my channel or my business page, I just want to welcome you and let you know that my name is Christine Trimpe. I am an author, a speaker, a joy seeker, and my passion for you is to heal holistically, heal your whole health holistically, and we do that by faith. I love talking about food, fasting, feelings, fitness, and all of it on a foundation of faith. So that's why I'm here. And that's why I loved the question, what is food freedom? And I want you to stick around and hear the story. I'm going to read to you today from this wonderful compilation book called She Writes for Him, Stories of Living Hope. And my story is featured in the section on addiction. So I'm just going to go ahead and read it to you. And I'm excited to share this with you today. In answer to my coaching client's question, what is food freedom? So let's dive in. Finding freedom from formidable food. Church, I have a confession. And please forgive my cracking voice. Speaking the truth out loud for the first time stirs up decades of emotion. Might as well hand me a tissue, but here goes. I am a food addict. There, I said it. I'm opening up these wounds to share the hope found in Jesus in overcoming our addictions, whether it be salty and sugary snacks, shoes, shopping, sex, or success. This is my story about the freedom I found in beating my decades-long addiction. Because, church, I love you. And we need to talk about this hard stuff, these sins we often overlook. I see the struggle and the heartbreak, and I know you wish you could break down the walls of addiction to break free from those chains once and for all. I hope my God story will inspire and encourage your heart. I mourned for decades the despair as a result of my choices. As a food addict for almost 50 years, I found myself trapped in a vicious cycle. I craved carbohydrates and sugar, ate more than I intended, and stuffed myself until I felt miserably sick. Recently, I discovered that my high carbohydrate diet created this cycle of sugar cravings and sugar crashing. All day, every day, stuffing myself with carbs satisfied my body physiologically and psychologically. In addition to the physical damage, emotionally, I carried guilt and shame. I easily made excuses for my poor health and dieting failures. Most of the time, I hid my excessive eating from my family. I hit up fast food drive-through windows alone and ate when everyone left the room, keeping my problem under wraps, or so I thought. The painful truth, I checked off all the classic signs of food addiction. Here's another hard truth, church. I idolized food. I controlled my emotions and soothed my soul with food. Food filled the holes in my heart and soul while leaving them, plus my body and mind severely damaged. I prioritized food over everything, especially the scant time I spent in relationship with the very one who designed our physical need for food. Until recently, I have spent my entire adult life completely missing the mark on a deep and abiding relationship with Jesus because my soul sucking relationship with food literally separated me from the only one capable to rescue me from this addiction. I believe Paul understood my struggles when he wrote about the cravings of the flesh in his letter to the Ephesians regarding their former ways. All of us also lived among them at one time, gratifying the cravings of our flesh and following its desires and thoughts. That's Ephesians 2:3 in the NIV. For decades, the truth of my addiction weighed heavily in my body. My body was 100 pounds overweight, revealed this truth. But harder to detect, the heavy weight also crushed my spirit. I wore a mask to fiercely protect my heart, mind, and soul. In addition to the shame and guilt, I struggled with insecurity, isolation, worthlessness, fear, and depression. My whole self languished in misery. There were deeply painful times in my years of food addiction when I longed to check out of this life. I had no hope, no energy, no joy. Surely my family would function without me. Eternal sleep sounded like the perfect escape from my chronic exhaustion. Praise God, He had other plans and never allowed me to see these plans from the enemy through to the end. In the late fall of 2015, I received 3 diagnoses that were concerning. I was morbidly obese and had obstructive sleep apnea, painful ovarian cyst, and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which may progress to cirrhosis of the liver. The idea of an early death scared me to death. I guess I didn't really want to die an early death. In my despair, I cried out to Jesus for healing. He answered just like he promised, and he lifted me up from my miry pit and placed my feet on a firm foundation. That's Psalm 40. Heavy chains of food addiction had ruled my life for decades. Jesus, are you ready, willing, and able to do some heavy lifting? I lack strength. I need you. I cried in my desperate prayers for healing. He graciously reminded me time and time again to lay down my heavy burden, and he would give me one thing I craved in my chronic exhaustion: rest. Rest. His yoke is easy and his burden is light. Matthew 11:30. I took a bold step in trusting him for a miracle and marveled as he did the heavy lifting without missing a step. Why did I neglect his promise for decades? Food addiction is a formidable enemy. Let's face it, we have to eat, right? And comfort food is, you guessed it, comforting. But here's the uncomfortable reality. My food addiction fast-tracked me to an early death and an empty life. I needed a battle plan, and he delivered the perfect strategy. I found my hope by seeking answers in his word. Every morning, without fail, I equip my battle with his promises and truth. In his letter to the Ephesians, Paul went on to encourage the believers that we find living hope when we turn fleshly cravings over to a gracious God. He writes, "But because of his great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ, even when we were dead in transgressions. It is by grace you have been saved." Ephesians 2:4-5 in the NIV. As my spiritual journey with Jesus matured, I identified the true source, true hope for healing. Leaning into Jesus every day through his word strengthened my resolve to cling to his spirit of power and self-control. I waged war on the overwhelming cravings. I ditched the fear of failure and exposure and began the hard work of trusting his promises covered in his love. Another verse penned by Paul equipped me in this battle. For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. 2 Timothy 1:7 ESV. Paul's wisdom encouraged me in weakness. Bone weary and weak for almost 30 years, I grasped Jesus' power to battle my weakness. I know in my weakness, his power is made strong. 2 Corinthians 12:9. Jesus instilled in me the power to quit sugar. Within a few short weeks of my decision to quit sugar, the cravings were gone. A complete removal of my physical cravings for the substance that was destroying my health. Those powerful cravings for sugar and carbohydrates subsided and were overpowered by his spirit of self-control. After 30 years of failure, Jesus gifted me with a successful weight loss journey and healed my obesity, chronic exhaustion, obstructive sleep apnea, ovarian cysts, fatty liver disease, prediabetes, mood disorders, and much more. But I like to call these physical results just the side benefits on this joyful journey of healing. The true victory is found in my emotional and spiritual healing with Jesus. My chains of food addiction are gone, freeing my whole self to serve him with a revived zeal for life. I gained this freedom by wholly committing to my walk with him, abiding with him in his word, and allowing his sanctifying process to create me in his image. I have been freed from my sinful cravings, freed from idolatry of food, and all by his power and his beautiful gift of self-control. Church, Jesus is waiting to break your chains of addiction and idolatry. There is hope here. And call upon me in the day of trouble. I will deliver you, and you shall glorify me. That's written in Psalm 50, verse 15. I give him all the glory for my rescue. One thing wholly fills the holes in my soul. One thing I now crave, the bread of life, Jesus. I am free. And the living truth from this story is if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. John 8:36 from the ESV. And so that is my story of the answer to what is food freedom, and finding freedom from formidable food was the first thing I wrote about this journey that I've been on. It's in this book. I have them for sale. I will put them under the comments how you can get one. If you know anybody struggling with addiction or cancer or abuse or suffering, this is a really awesome little gift book, and it's hardcover too. It's beautiful. But really, the last thing I want to ask you is, how would you answer that question? What is food freedom? I would love for you to leave me a comment below. And the very, very, very last thing I want to encourage you with is that if I can do this, you can do this too. Bye for now.